Imagine floating down the Nile River on a warm evening, the smell of jasmine bloom wafting in the air from the distant shore, drawing us near to a faraway place on the continent of Africa called Ancient Kemet, aka Egypt. The memory is ever so faintly pleasant and majestic. As the Fuka boats float by, the sight of the Great Pyramids in the distant horizon evokes an awe-struck tingling sensation throughout our being. Let's travel back to ancient Kemet and examine the life of an extraordinary queen who was placed in a peculiar position no other woman in ancient Egypt has ever experienced. Today, we will cover the story of Kemet's captivating royalty, Queen Hatshepsut. Welcome to Womenz Thoughts. Let's get started. Before I get started, please bear with me with some mispronounced names in this video. I promise you, I will give you my very best. Queen Hatshepsut was born in 1508 BC, ancient Egypt, during the 18th dynasty. In fact, the location of her birth was just north of the Great Kushite Kingdom. Her father was Pharaoh Thutmose I, and her mother was Queen Ahmose. In addition to her parents, Hatshepsut shared a lavish Egyptian palace with her two siblings, sister Nefer-ubiti and half-brother Thutmose II. The young princess was born into a respected family of royalty. With that being said, Hatshepsut's childhood experiences were luxurious and comfortable. Furthermore, Hatshepsut, now 13, had a rich bronze complexion, honey-colored eyes, finely chiseled sculpture face with neatly braided shoulder-length hair, wearing the most distinguished loose-fitting gauze textured gown, cinched at the waist. She was developing to be quite the looker. The young stylish royal also included in her attire a dainty matching necklace and earring set, displaying a small gold Egyptian scarab beetle crusted in gems, dangling freely as she shifts around the patio, exposing her nicely manicured bare feet. Notably, the summer days at the family palace were long and boring. However, the young monarch enjoyed the days off from her finishing school for girls. The young African princess loved to spend days safely basking in the warm sun rays, peeking through the wooden terraces within the Egyptian palaces. So, let's take a note. Palaces with the plural. That's how wealthy the families of these dynasties were. Let's continue. Despite the sizzling hot summer temperatures in Kemet, she'd always felt energized and calm, relaxing under the shaded structure decorated with the finest off-white silk curtains surrounding the terrace. In fact, the cascading mild breeze during sunset over her glowing, deeply melanated skin made her feel alive. In the year 1493 BC, Hatshepsut's father, Pharaoh Thutmose I, passed away from natural causes. The royal family immediately started the preparations for a marriage. Hatshepsut, now 14 years old, and her 15-year-old half-brother, Thutmose II, were set to marry each other the following year. So, As a reminder, I think I touched on this in the previous ancient Egyptian video I covered. It was a custom for ancient royal families to, air quotes, keep the wealth and legacy in the family, so to speak. And Egypt was no different regarding sibling marriages in relation to other royal families during that time. Let's move on. Given that, the family celebrated the wedding ceremony with mixed emotions. Happy because of the new power couple and newly sworn in Pharaoh, Thutmose II, but on the other hand, somber due to the passing of their late patriarch, Thutmose I. The young newlyweds honored their roles as husband and wife. There was respect, commitment, and most importantly, dedication to the people of Kemet. So, in today's standards, teenagers marrying this young is not encouraged and is absolutely shunned upon. However, in antiquity, it was very necessary to start a family young because of the short life expectancy. Let's proceed. Nevertheless, ancient and present details regarding Hatshepsut and Thutmose II marriage was not fully documented. In fact, the only specifications was that the royals later produced a daughter together called Neferferuwe. Unfortunately, after the birth of their daughter, Hatshepsut's husband passed away from an illness in the year 1479 BC at the young age of 27. The couple never produced a male heir, air quotes, together. But there is hope. Hatshepsut's husband fathered his only son with the royal court's concubine. That same year, after the transitioning of Pharaoh Thutmose II, the royal family once again prepared for the ushering in of a new pharaoh. Immediately, Thutmose's son with his royal concubine was placed on the throne as Thutmose III at the tender age of 3. Therefore, Hatshepsut dutifully took on the role as royal regent to the child monarch. So, previously, I produced a video called The Queen Archetype. I have a full breakdown of all the multiple titles and roles royal women within the court serve to aid their kings. In addition, they also help prepare the future male heirs, and in some rare cases, female heirs ascend to the throne. Let's continue. In the year 1472 BC, Thutmose III, now 10, sits on the royal throne right beside Queen Regent Hatshepsut. The Regent Queen continued to serve the people of Kemet by aiding the child monarch into making crucial decisions related to the kingdom. As a result, quickly that same year, Hatshepsut was promoted to Queen Regnant, then later senior co-regent, meaning Osiris, the god, signifying rebirth, while the child king was relegated as the junior co-regent, meaning Horus, the god, signifying sun, S-U-N, that is. By 1473 BC, Hatshepsut helped the kingdom of Kemet with precision, growth, and efficiency. The Egyptian officials and commoners were pleased. Africa, which produced and possessed the majority of the world's natural resources, emerged as one of the wealthiest continents ever known. Notably, Hatshepsut officially appointed herself head pharaoh of Egypt. making her Kemet's first woman pharaoh. So, in my first video covering ancient Egypt, titled Badass Queen, I mentioned Africa being one of the first continents, which I'm going to highlight. When necessary, allow women to take rulership over a nation. Let's move on. Obviously, her people trusted her on the throne as head ruler. In contrast, there were speculations on how her co-ruler, now an adult, Thutmose III, felt about the first female headship. When we think of Hatshepsut in history, we picture her beard she so proudly wore during her reign. Her granite sculpture depicting a bearded pharaoh signified power. It was called a regalia. So, a regalia is a set of emblems, statues, and symbols representing sovereignty and power. Let's proceed. Throughout history, many scholars of ancient Egypt studies were confused about her true gender, including myself. Was she a man or a woman? With today's technology, Google, AI, and books, the answers are at your fingertips. I looked into her legacy deeper and came to this plausible conclusion. Hatshepsut was the very first female pharaoh to one of the most famous, powerful, and richest kingdom known on the face of this earth, both prior and present, Egypt. Therefore, as a woman who inherited the opportunity to sit on the greatest throne ever, she carried out an amazing solution to gain an authoritative, powerful presence. Hatshepsut seized the opportunity and ruled the kingdom with serious, razor-sharp focus. It is likened to another powerful historic woman who led her people into freedom. Millenniums later, it is obvious the spirit of Hatshepsut resided in the Honorable Harriet Tubman, who also wore male attire to accomplish what she needed to accomplish effectively. So, Hatshepsut, Queen Pharaoh, felt it was important to gain her respect from other male royal officials as a woman, as well as navigate the upward mobility of the great kingdom. Let's continue. The great female pharaoh of Egypt understood her assignment well. She did not disappoint her subjects, both domestically or foreign. Sovereignty is the most imperative protection for all the world's nations. The ability to secure natural resources and establish reciprocal foreign trade peacefully is a must. With that being said, Hatshepsut's first legislation to be carried out was organizing and arranging funds for a trip to the land of Punt. So, Land of Punt was an ancient wealthy trading partner located in the Horn of Africa. The products traded were primarily incense, gold, ebony, ivory, and exotic animals. Let's continue. One of the most valuable items traded was myrrh and frankincense. Ancient Kemet used myrrh and frankincense for religious rituals, embalming their dead, perfumery, medicine, and of course makeup. The charred myrrh was used for the Egyptian trademark eyeliner for both genders. In fact, Hatshepsut returned home with 30 myrrh trees and pounds of frankincense. Welcome to the Thought Cafe. It's cold outside, so please come join me with some warm cheese-filled bagels and a cup of warm tea. Let's discuss the impressive 18th dynasty in ancient Kemet, aka Egypt. The dynasty ran from 1550 to 1292 BC. The era was called the Thutmoside dynasty, named after four pharaohs during this run. In fact, the 18th dynasty in ancient Egypt is what made the empire famous and world-renowned in literature, plays, and cinema. It is important to mention during this era, the 18th dynasty was the most stable and peaceful due to Egypt's military successfully defending themselves against the very first foreign invaders called Hyksos people from the Levant, just northeast of Lower Egypt. However, today we're discussing Hatshepsut, and she was not the only amazing 18th dynasty ruler. After the Queen Pharaoh's reign, there was Pharaoh Akhenaten. I want to note he is the Pharaoh who brought us the meaning of one God with his new spiritual belief called Aten, symbolizing the sun disk. His wife, Queen Consort Nefertiti. His mother, Queen Mother Tiye. And the most known Egyptian ruler ever, Akhenaten's son, Boy King Tutankhamun, aka King Tut. Oh, as a reminder, I covered most of these important rulers I just mentioned above in previous content. Please go and enjoy the content. I will leave a link to the video in the description box below. Let's get back to our story. Historians documented that Hatshepsut's reign in ancient Egypt during the 18th dynasty was fairly peaceful and stable. Hence, the sense of ease and calm that made it possible for the Queen Pharaoh to facilitate and create plans for future building structures around Egypt. In fact, she followed in the footsteps of previous pharaohs and arranged for many religious temples and many monuments, like the sacred obelisk, to stand tall in the hot desert. Next, Hatshepsut restored the famous mortuary temple of Hatshepsut, the temple of Karnak, the Red Chapel, and precinct of Mut. In the year 1458 BC, Hatshepsut passed away from a genetic illness at a very young age. Historians are not sure precisely how old the queen was at the time of her transition. Some say it was between the age of 37 and 47. Her burial was in the Valley of the Kings, tomb KV20 in Egypt. Unfortunately, there was little history known about her daughter Neferuru's life. The only bit of information recorded was that she too passed away young during her mother's reign of unknown causes. In essence, Hatshepsut's story made history, being the very first woman to rule the great ancient Kemet. However, her story over time attracted speculations and rumors of individuals purposely counseling her reign and legacy as Queen Pharaoh. In the final analysis, some historians believe after Hatshepsut's passing, her own stepson or nephew organized a campaign to deface her images by chiseling out her name from monuments. In fact, some scholars wrote he may have possibly did this out of resentment and possessing a misogynistic attitude. Others documented that the destruction was done by future foreign Western invaders, vandalizing and systematically removing the noses and lips from the ancient Egyptian statues. in hopes of erasing the original Black African features. Whether it was the former or the latter, or maybe both, Queen Pharaoh Hatshepsut's legacy was undeniable. She is an unforgettable pharaoh and is currently known in history as being the most accomplished and spectacular woman ruler ever. Queen Pharaoh Hatshepsut, here are your flowers. Thank you for viewing our Queen Pharaoh Hatshepsut story. Our Kemet Queen kicked off the new year. I want to make a confession. Every now and then there is a random bell sound throughout most of my videos. Please forgive my little soon-to-be 6-year-old orange tabby cat named Max XX. It appears he loves to get my full attention while I'm busy making content. So when you hear random bells, you know who it is. So, what were your thoughts on the Hatshepsut story? Please leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so when I upload another video, you will be notified. As always, because everyone has a story. Ciao! Oh, Happy New Year's!